Hey, everybody, it is Tim Gillette, and we are back here with another great Tim Gillette Show episode. Today's guest is a really special one, and guys, you are going to want to stay tuned through this whole episode. This guy here is a change maker in the world. He's also a cool guy, or else he wouldn't be on my show, all right? But I'm going to introduce you to someone who I thought was so great, so captivating, that I did a little research because of the uniqueness of today's interview. We're doing a camera interview today with a gentleman, all right, who's going to tell you a little bit about himself. His name is Daniel. Let me bring him up here. Mr. Daniel, how are you today?
I am doing great, sir. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. So glad that you can join us here for the broadcast, man. I didn't leave the secret out, all right? I wanted you to let the secret know that, you know what I mean, as we're on camera, some unique things about yourself.
Totally. So I am a recent law grad and the founder of a nonprofit, but what I am also pleased to say is I have made it this far being someone who was born blind and with other disabilities, including chronic pain. And that's actually the fuel to what I do, because I was told no and everything I couldn't do throughout my childhood and young adult life that I decided to say, forget that, let's go change the world. And here we are.
Wow. You know, it is so, you know, I've only in my time, Daniel, of doing podcasts, you're only the second blind person I've interviewed. All right. And I do an on-camera interview, so it's like unique. You know what I mean? It's very rarely you're going to get a guy who's going to come on a camera interview who's blind, because, you know, and I'm sure you probably have you're probably used to it because you're an accomplished person, but the other person is like a little bit shy. It's like, well, I'm blind. I can't see anything. I'm like, yeah, but they can see you. And you're going to touch them by being on camera. And I think you're going to do the same for us today. So.
Well, and I think it's important to say here that, you know, before we went live, I double checked with you. Hey, does my camera look okay? Because I don't know, other than just based off of muscle memory. I sit here, I put the camera there, and I have never yet run into a host or anyone else who seems to be the least bit put off by me having to say, hey, can you just make sure that this looks good? And it's really that simple.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. I mean, you're an accomplished person based on some of the accomplishments you've shared before you shared the fact, and by the way, I was born blind. And so many of us use the handicaps of things in life. Now, I personally, Daniel, have epilepsy, and I've tried to never let that be something to stop me from doing the success I wanted. And you saying, well, I'm not going to listen to him. I'm not going to take it. I'm just going to go do it anyway. All right. And I'm guessing, tell me this is true, Daniel, is a lot of it comes from maybe close friends or family members who are maybe trying to protect you, but you're determined to beat it.
Absolutely. And, you know, we have this, especially in the Western world, we have this model where, okay, there's a problem with the body part, or so it seems. So you go run to the hospitals and the doctors, and they look at it as a thing that needs to be fixed, or they look at it as a thing that cannot be fixed. Either way, they come back from their perspective saying, well, we can either go for this long shot miracle, or there's nothing we can do, sorry. And really the analysis and the communication stops there. So it really does become, for those of us that are blessed enough that we find those who are maybe outside of our inner circle who can say, wait a minute, I actually have this little trick or this little tip I can give you, and they just keep compounding one after the other. That's how you start to break free from people's well-intended but oftentimes uninformed best intentions.
You're right. And to me, it's like, you know, like I said, yeah, I've got epilepsy. It's not a curse, all right, but it does hinder things I can do in my life, right? But it's not like a death sentence, all right? I'm sure you're the same way. It's not a death sentence. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean I stop living, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I still got to live, all right? My life's different than this guy Joe I met next door to me, all right? It's different, but it doesn't mean I can't live probably a fuller life than that guy who thinks he has everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Completely agree.
Yeah. You know what I mean? In some of the accomplishments that you've done, has a lot of your stuff been uphill battles, or have you finally gotten, okay, this is a disability, but it is not a battle for me anymore?
I'm getting closer to that latter point, but I think the message I always try to convey is that it's messy and it's not linear. Every time we break through one set of barriers, either outward or inward, we can reach that plateau, but then there's always another peak to rise up above.
Yeah.
And so, that was for me getting out into the world and then working and then going back to law school and then starting a nonprofit. All of it was, can I set free from this level of expectations and race to the next one? And there's always more to do, which is really what makes life exciting.
So, I mean, the idea to go to law school, was that like, how long, first of all, how long ago was that?
So I started the process in 2017 with the applications. I started attending in 2018 and graduated this summer.
Okay, cool. And before that, your education before that was like, did you have a master's or you know what I mean, or just a bachelor's from something?
Just a bachelor's in education that I wasn't sure what to do with.
Interesting. In education, what made you want to go down that route of getting an education in education?
So I really enjoy learning, and I enjoy sharing my love of learning with others. And so it was a natural fit in that. And I had thought about going into K-12. I had thought about pursuing an upper level degree. Nothing ever quite fit. And really where I was at that point in my life was, there are these things that I see as being obtainable. Which of these various options can I live with the best? And it took me getting out of that mindset and someone coming to me and saying, you have the talents, you have the passion for advocacy, why wouldn't you pursue a degree in law? And I said, well, I don't think I can afford it, and people with chronic pain don't do well in that field, and blah, blah, blah. But once I snapped free from really limiting myself and said, well, what do I actually want to do? Yeah, I want to go to law school. I want to get this intellectual challenge. I want to be able to use that degree to really amplify the good I can do. Then I was able to stop asking myself, what do I think I can do, and pick the best option of that. And instead ask myself, what do I want to do, and how do I get there?
Well, I mean, you were able to take your bachelor's education and use the law degree, or going to law school, to build upon what you've already done, as opposed to many people, they go, well, I don't like this, and they throw it all in the trash and go, well, I don't know what I'll do next. It's like you had something to build from it, at least, didn't you?
I did. I think that's where I've been very blessed in my life, is I've always found some way to take whatever circumstances I'm in and ask myself, okay, maybe there's a lot of things about this that are suboptimal, but what can I gain here? What's worth preserving? And then how do I use this to propel myself to that next level?
And it's interesting because I know people, and I've heard this, people who lose one thing in life or don't have one thing in life use others, all right, to overcompensate. That usually makes them go further and further. For me, like, the epilepsy, all right, I got it when I was an adult. I could not drive. I drove 18-wheeler tractor trailer at the time. I could no longer do that. I also can never be a pilot, right? There's things I can't do. However, since that time, I decided to take on, and I learned to balance my life out. And I rode 1 million miles on motorcycle across our country in the United States, traveling many roads, doing that by being able to pursue a dream. All right. I probably never would have pursued that dream, all right, had I not had epilepsy. But I'm like, okay, I want to accomplish this. Have you gotten something in your life that you went, you know what? I want to accomplish this just because this is one thing I can do, as opposed to things I can't do.
Oh, yeah. And I think, for instance, kind of going back to the nonprofit, it's all based off of the different experiences I've had, the experience I've been able to witness among my friends and loved ones. And then also other things like I'm currently putting together an anthology to talk about allyship for people with disabilities and, just various things that I think have really shaped how I view the world and how I connect to other humans that maybe wouldn't have been the same had I not had this particular experience.
Okay. And now, when did you put the nonprofit together, and what exactly do you guys serve in the nonprofit?
So we came up with the idea during the summer after my first year of law school, so 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and we got incorporated last year, received our 501c3 earlier this year, finally. And we are building what is an effective virtual community where everyone can thrive. And what that means is, regardless of what your characteristics are, having a disability, a chronic illness, or just wanting to come in and be an ally, everyone has something to learn. Everyone has something to contribute. No matter how down you may feel, you
Mm-hmm.
still have something you can share that is of value.
Yeah.
And from that basic layer, we can start to build a collective wealth of knowledge that is completely unrivaled in this world right now. We can start teaching people from our perspective what needs to change and how to get there. We can start building what is effectively the Wikipedia of disability resources, which is not currently out there. There's so many different scattered resources that no one knows about.
Mm-hmm.
And all of it comes back to bring people together, show people how to build that cycle of reciprocity, unleash that potential, and then see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's an interesting concept, and I love it. The fact that you're out there reaching out to people and giving them these resources. Growing up, let me ask you this: growing up, did you have were you do you feel like you were lacking in resources to get what you wanted to achieve in the world?
Oh, absolutely. I was not exposed to a white cane or braille, any other kind of
Hmm.
techniques like that until I was a few months shy of being 18. And I have enough sight in my left eye that if you magnify the letters up to being like, I don't know, almost the size of my hand, I can read them.
Oh wow!
That's not really being functionally literate.
No, no.
Learning how to read with braille, learning how to use screen readers, that's being literate. And my parents tried.
Mm-hmm.
But everywhere they turned, it was, well, magnify what's left of the eyesight and wait for this miracle surgery. There's microchips, there's retina transplants, all this other nonsense out there. And nobody was able to say, hey, he's going to blossom if you get him the tools that teach him how to use something other than what's left of his vision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And out of a mix of things, including issues with my birth certificate and other just stuff, I actually effectively missed what would have been grades 7 through 11. My parents tried to homeschool me. The homeschool materials wasn't accessible,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. So I missed on what would have been 5 years of education and socialization and had to bounce back from that.
Wow.
So that really colors what I do going forward.
Okay. Well, yeah. The socialization part of school. All right, that's something maybe I want to go into here because now it seems like your organization there is trying to put that socialization back into helping others who have the same issues to make sure they're socially adapt. Correct?
Exactly. And I think it goes back to even when we are included on a rudimentary level,
Mm-hmm.
usually it is at the point where it's like, oh, well, there's these people with disabilities. How can we serve them?
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to shift that paradigm and say, yeah, we need stuff to come in like every other person, but don't forget that just like everyone else, we have something to contribute, and we need to teach people to lean into that, all of the things that come from philanthropy and contributing back into the world, because we need that feedback and that opportunity just as much as anyone else, if not more so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you have any brothers or sisters then growing up?
I am the youngest of 6. I was adopted, so all of my siblings are 10 to 20 years older than me.
Oh wow!
So they, most of them have kids that are around my age. So interesting family dynamic.
Yeah, it is. It is. But and I was just curious how well your brothers and sisters then helped in raising you and getting you to adapt to the world.
You know, we moved around enough and they moved around enough that sometimes they were around and sometimes they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one sister who actually found the School for the Blind when I was 17 and helped me get down that path. So, she's done some things. Some of my other siblings have done things here or there, but I think for everyone in the family, it's been a really steep learning curve just because there wasn't really enough feedback coming into them on how they could do what they wanted to do regarding support and just encouragement and help.
Okay. Do you have a family now? Have you gotten like kids and stuff or no?
I do. I have 3 kids.
Okay.
They are 11 and 9-year-old boys and a 13-year-old girl.
Okay, cool. Were they born with blindness or anything like that? Did it move on in a generation, or is this just something that was just you?
They did not inherit mine. They did inherit my ex-wife's eye disease. However, because we were able to treat it effectively and quickly, they did not sustain
Awesome.
significant vision loss.
Cool. Well, that's good. I mean, and how close are you with the kids? Do they come around to your organization and try to do anything to be part of it?
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing some. My daughter especially will help me keep track of my public appearances and will make sure that I'm set up properly when I do video podcasts, things like that. And so they're involved and they support, and I'm always joking with them I'm going to be YouTube famous, and you'll get that groan out of them. It's really funny.
That's an irony type thing. All right, you know what I mean? Oops, I lost you, Daniel. I hope you get to come back. He just popped off like that. Hopefully he'll be popping back in here in a second. Possibly hit a button wrong, so it's all right. Hopefully he gets back in. If his staff is there waiting, they'll find a way to get him back in. But isn't it interesting that, ladies and gentlemen, that we actually have people in this world who, despite what's going on, they find ways to thrive. I think it's very interesting. I'm so glad that Daniel was able to come in today and share little things with his life, and the fact that and he can laugh about it. So, and it's it's so cool when I'm able to find these people that are so cool that they've gotten like to adapt to their world to be successful. And I know, as I reached out originally, when I reached out to Daniel, I think it was back in August. Here he comes. He's coming back. So, as he gets it in here.
So I followed your advice about making sure the internet was secure. However, the phone itself decided to crash.
You know what I thought, though, Daniel, is I thought, because we had a good laughing moment. I thought maybe you put your hand down and hit the button that went disconnect. But no, I think it's so cool that how you're adapting to a world where everybody would kind of cast you out and say, well, yeah, he's just going to be this guy who's just going to get here and there. And yet you're proving them wrong every step of the way. And I think that is so cool.
Well, thank you. And, I think it's a motivating thing for me. It would be so, let's say that I would have had some of the privileges that one would have hoped would have been out there. Would I have that inner desire to create opportunities that I didn't have? Maybe not. But I think even if I did, it would be coming from a different place. So I think it's about being able to process what was or was not there, figure out how you can improve things, and then just keep leveling things up, not only for yourself, but for those around you, so that we can just keep moving inclusion and accessibility forward.
Well, I mean, it's something I teach in a lot of the stuff I do, and the speaking and the people I reach out to is, never focus on the things you don't have. Instead, focus on what you do have and how to make it work. And It sounds like that's your life to a T.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
on a good day, I mean, let's be real. I get down and I have to struggle some days just like everybody else. And I really, I want to take a moment to highlight that, because I've spoken with people who are like, I'm not that superhuman disabled person. I'm not, I'm still struggling with this. And I want to take a moment and say, that's okay. We've all been there. And some of us, probably all of us, still deal with that from time to time. So I think regardless of whatever circumstances you're in, forward progress is a thing, but don't beat yourself up for not being where you want to go quite yet.
Exactly. I mean, when the year they told me, Daniel, that I had a seizure disorder is what they labeled it as. I spent almost a year being depressed. First of all, I couldn't get a job. I only had blue collar experience. Nobody was going to put me in front of a machine until they knew I was stable, you know what I mean? And not having, a seizure in front of a machine operating it. So it was weird for me. And I got really depressed through it, and I had a friend come along, which basically said to me, Tim, you can be an entrepreneur now. Now you can develop and do what you want and create a business. I'm like, well, never thought about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's what you want to go. Well, I can create my own, organization here and go out and help people and impact the world with what I can do. Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, especially for myself, I need to set my own hours because I never know what my pain or fatigue level is going to be like on a given day. And I certainly have to take time where even on a good day, maybe I have to give myself an extra long break or I have to do this or do that with my schedule. Well, what could normally be a quote unquote accommodation in the work world, I'm like, you know what? As an entrepreneur, I have the right to do that. And I'm now setting myself up in a way where it's full speed ahead because I was able to lean into that entrepreneurship and do exactly like what you were saying.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, being the fact that you've had have to go and get rested from time to time, and I get that. All right, I the older I get, the more worn out I get during the day. But working your schedule and working around the way the world has been with COVID, all right, has that even been something that is even on your radar or even worried about it? Because you can't see all the things that all of us see that make us worry. You're privileged. You don't have to see the bull crap that we have to see anyway.
Well, and let me say here, I have had to. So I've had COVID 3 times.
Oh wow!
And I worked through it pretty much each time. I was able to honor the symptoms I was having and maybe ease off the throttle a little bit, but also said, you know what, I can either focus on being sick or I can focus on the good things I'm able to do and not push quite as hard, but still keep enough of a rhythm where I was able to focus on things other than just how crappy I was feeling. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lesson there. And I think as the world has really adapted to saying, hey, it doesn't matter in most cases if you're meeting via Zoom or if you're sitting in front of somebody. Sometimes it's nice to have a face-to-face meeting, but it's not essential every time. By the way, that's an accommodation or a source of access that the disability rights movement has been asking for years. Mm-hmm. And so in a way, the rest of the world has finally come back to us and say, oh, guess you were right. Maybe this isn't really as big of a deal as we thought it was. So that does start to open up a little bit more of the world to us.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you this: how many of your staff, all right, in the organization are blind as well?
So we don't have staff, but we do have a board and we have volunteers. And among our teams, almost everyone has a disability of some sort, whether it's blindness, whether it's say depression or anxiety, whether it's some combination of maybe a few different things. Mm-hmm. It's based off of that collective experience of wanting to break through the stigma and break through the barriers that are out there.
But I mean, and I'm going to play a devil's advocate on the world, not you, but on the world, and go, well, don't really, in some way or another, all of us have a disability. Most of us just think we don't. Yep. Let's be real. All right. My epilepsy could be my disability, but all of us have something that could potentially be the crippling factor in our lives. And instead of making it the crippling factor, some take it as that challenge to get over. Right. And I'm sure you probably could help the guy on Wall Street over the fact that, he's crippling over the fact that he thinks he can't make a sale. And you go, dude, you think you got a crippling problem. Let me tell you about mine and how to get over it.
Well, but I think, I always phrase it as really the disability does not generally lie within our bodies. It's not some defect within us. It's us trying to adapt to a world that was designed with a particular archetype in mind. You know,
Mhm.
you mentioned earlier about how even once you felt like you were still wanting to work and still figuring out yourself,
Mhm.
you had that extra layer of convincing other people what you
Yeah.
could do.
Yeah.
That's the disability,
Yeah.
people's perceptions.
Exactly. So, and I remember, yeah, I remember it vividly. My biggest thing was I spent the first 3 months depressed over the fact that I couldn't drive 18 wheeler anymore because I loved the job. That was one of the few jobs that I had in my careers of working different places when I worked for other people that I loved, and I was really depressed that I couldn't do it anymore. Right. Um, but then when I was able to open up doors and realize things I could do, and you know what I mean, I created my first company 6 months, I guess 6 months after that happened. I created one of my first companies out there that sold off and is still out there today. That someone else took it to a whole nother level than I did, and that's it. If I didn't start it, imagine if I gave up and
Yep.
didn't even start that. And I won't get into the stuff that I've done and the patents and stuff that were created in that corporation, but that stuff wouldn't be in a world today if I didn't get off my butt and go, let me create this company.
Yep.
All right. And I'm sure you guys, especially in your foundation, are really focused on that, going, dude, we don't get up and do this. There'll be generations that won't have because we didn't.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost like a piece of responsibility has been put on your shoulders.
Yep. Well, and I do. I call this my calling.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I am blessed to be able to do. And, you know, I have the opportunity to speak with people or sometimes lead. Even just last month, we led a class effectively at an event for landscape architects where we were showing them the existing accessibility barriers in a park in downtown Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
and made that part of their annual convention. And, you know, it was something that a lot of people gave some just tremendous feedback for. One of the lead people on their side who was organizing it said it was one of the highlights of her career. It's like, this is the opportunity of what we can do. We can make people more conscious, and we can do it in a way where it's going to have lasting results and where they feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that was an opportunity that was placed before me based off of my experience, based off of my personality, etc. And so, yeah, if I don't lean into that and make some good out of it, then I've got myself to blame.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, one other area I've been going on in this current series that I'm doing here with the podcast was during COVID. Did you come up with something new, or you know what I mean? You know, while we were in lockdown, something new or some twist to things that became innovative, that more innovative than you already were? Yeah.
I think we were blessed in the sense that a lot of what we had decided to do in early 2019 became a little bit more feasible based off of COVID.
Wow.
Like we had seen some of our nonprofit peers who had been counting on in-person fundraising and in-person events and all of this. And some of them were just absolutely crushed based on the inability to pivot. So I think that was great for us. Not great, you know, it was advantageous for us, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
However, at the same time, during COVID, as we watched everything happen with the fallout of George Floyd being murdered, et cetera, we've had to be careful but conscious of the need to go back into the world and say, yes, there are a lot of things going on in this world right now. There is a long overdue call for racial justice. There's a need for the world to adapt to a pandemic that just doesn't seem to want to go away. There's all these other things, but we have to talk about the role of these elements in our lives and how they intersect with disability, because we were disproportionately, and we still are disproportionately impacted by COVID as a population. We have our own very tragic history with misunderstandings and just problems with law enforcement. Not that anyone, and I have to say that it's not pointing a finger and saying law enforcement, you're bad, but there's this, there have been situations where we'll just say things can be improved.
Well, yeah, I can see it because I know plenty of police officers, and they walk up to a car not knowing what they're going to expect.
Yep.
All right, and they come up to a disabled person who can't react the way that, say, I may be able to react. Yeah, I can see that, and they have to be sensitive toward what comes up, and I'm sure that's part of what you're doing. Is correct?
Exactly, and it's about saying, look, we're not trying to say police are bad, but we are trying to say, look, they have not been adequately trained to deal with the situations like you said, and especially with the majority of disabilities being invisible.
Yeah,
that's a conversation we have to have, and we have to have it robustly so that we can stop having tragic outcomes.
Now, are you guys as an organization looking into doing some training and stuff for police officers and your first responders as part of your organization? I would see that would be a perfect fit because you're very articulative about what you do. Yeah,
absolutely. We're in that phase where we're trying to build those connections. If I had a meeting with someone and I could start to build that rapport and that trust, I would take it in a heartbeat, because I think we are well positioned to make a significant impact and do a lot of good through that.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. So pardon me, I got something stuck in my throat today. This is my third podcast today, because I was on somebody else's, then I did a podcast I do jointly, and then I'm interviewing you today, but then I'm done.
Nice.
So yeah, then my day is done and I get to relax for the night. But anyway, well, Daniel, one question I always like to go back and ask people: when I was 20 years old, I had a boss that gave me a job advice that turned out to be life advice. In other words, it carried over everywhere in my life, and I carry it till this day. And it was basically, he was telling me to run my job like I owned the business, which caused Tim to take ownership of everything I do in my life. Has anyone ever given you advice when you were younger that it still sticks in your head, and it's like that cement piece, like that advice?
I can't think of a particular piece of advice off the top of my head, although I'm sure there were many. But I'll go back to that same time in my life where I went from not feeling comfortable crossing a street at 18 to graduating from a training center where I had literally one of the graduation requirements is you're under sleep shades, so any vision you have left is taken out of the equation. You're driven around and loops and everything and dropped off at somewhere in the Denver metro area, and they say, get out, find your way back to the training center, and only ask the general population one question throughout the day. That was less than a year from when I started to say, hey, maybe I can go cross the street at night because I can still see the stoplight. That's where that pivotal moment came, where I was able to say, look, I can go anywhere I want to go. I can do whatever I want to do. And that's really what started propelling me forward.
Wow. And it's interesting you say that, because I'm one of these people who likes to take challenges. And if I would love it if someone basically took my wallet, took my phone, and dropped me somewhere. Okay, get back home.
Yep.
To me, that would be the great challenge. So anyway, but I love watching, you probably don't watch the TV shows that's out there. It's called Undercover Billionaire, where basically a billionaire went to this town and had to build a business. Yep. I'm looking at it like that, going, "Oh, I'd love that challenge, man!
Yeah.
Just give me. I don't need the cameras. Just give me that challenge, right?" But I see that, and it's like, oh my God, I think about that, and some people are listening today probably going, "Oh man, they did that to him," and other people are going, "Man, that's a guy who stepped up to the challenges in life, and when life ain't going to defeat me, I'm going to defeat it." Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I love it.
I thoroughly enjoyed that show.
Wow. Yeah. It's and I don't know if you know Joe Pardo, my friend Joe Pardo, and we actually did a couple episodes of commentary on that on the Undercover Billionaire, the newer version of it. So anyway, Well, Daniel, it's been great having you on as a guest today. I want to make sure people can reach out to you, learn more about your organization, all right, and maybe become donors or helping and assisting you in different ways. What is that website that they can reach you at, and best way to get you?
Awesome. So it is piecesofme.org, and we spell that PEACES, and that is to signify that we are not broken, but peace comes from embracing who we are and figuring out our best way to move forward.
Cool. I love it. So, well, I mean, it has been great having you on here, but before we go, I'm going to play a little game with you. All right. And I know you said you were okay with this, but you can't see what I'm going to do, but I'm going to share it to you anyway. Daniel, I have 7 envelopes in front of me. I want you to pick 3 of those, number 1 through 7. Pick 3 of those numbers.
Let's go with 3, 5, and 7.
3, 5, and 7. He likes to be the odd guy out, huh?
Yep.
I love it. Let's see what's in envelopes 3, 5, and 7 to ask you some unique this or that questions. So, oh man, I knew this was going to happen because of your situation, but I'm curious if you've tried them. The question number 1 is bowling or putt-putt?
I've tried both, and I actually broke my leg doing putt-putt because I was dumb.
Oh, wow. Really?
I did. I decided to jump off the little thing instead of walking down the ramp, and oops.
Oh, man. How about for a pet? Would you like a dog or a cat?
Cat, definitely.
Yeah, I was a cat person myself, but I have a grand puppy. My son has a puppy that I love to death. So the third one here on this question there is Christmas or Halloween?
Christmas.
Can you at least see some lights flashing or anything?
I can.
Okay. You probably can't make them out, but you can see them flashing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of color perception. It really just depends on how close I am to the lights.
Cool. Yeah, to me, I have a storage bin here by my condo that I store my Christmas lights in every because I put that many lights up. I have one. I've been in this condo complex for 8 years, and I won second place for 5 years in a row. And I finally, for the past 3 years straight, have won first place for the Christmas contest. And the reason I won first place now, and I only could get second place, was the lady who won first place passed away 3 years ago, and I bought her condo.
Wow.
All right, let me move on. The next envelope, I think we're envelope number 5 are 3 questions in here. The first one, at your house, does the toilet paper go over on the roll or under?
Over.
Has to be, right?
Emphatically over.
Wait a minute. That's a question that could be personal or not, but like, is that something like part of your habits to understand things because you can't see? Is that correct?
I don't know. It's probably just more because I'm quirky.
That's all of us. We're all quirky about one thing. Well, how about this? All right, if you for drinking, I don't know if you're a drinker or not, but would you rather have a glass of beer or a glass of wine?
I am not a drinker, but I will take any flavor of Mountain Dew there is.
Oh wow, there's a guy who's got tastes. Yeah. So, how about this of superheroes, Superman or Batman?
I think Batman.
Yeah. I know you can't watch the movies, but I remember Superman radio shows as a kid. I used to listen to them. That was great.
I have all these memories of watching the old Batman and Robin reruns from like the 60s. So, that's where that affinity comes from.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let me ask you this one here. If you're going on a trip, would you rather stay in a hotel or go camping?
Oh, hotel, please.
Yeah. My wife's camping. I'm hotel. Yeah. I think roughing it is a 4-star hotel. Yeah.
Now, see, I can do a Red Roof Inn. I mean, the last thing I stayed in was like a Quality Inn or something, so I can do 2-star, and that's okay usually.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm stuck on I'm like a Marriott. I'm like a Marriott Gold, and I like staying at Marriott's or Hyatt's. These are the 2 hotels I like the most. So, all right. The next one here is, if you went out to get a snack, all right, at fast food, would you rather have a hamburger or a taco?
I love both, but probably a hamburger.
Hamburger? Yeah, I'm a hamburger guy, but like there's certain tacos that are good. So
Yeah.
So, and my last question to you, all right, and I don't know how well you know this, but like this is a unique question I like to ask people, and it is, who was the better basketball player, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
I am from Ohio, so I am supposed to say LeBron James. I grew up in the 90s, and I watched WGN almost every basketball game. So man, I don't know. I have never seen anyone else be able to bounce a free throw deliberately off the backboard, catch it in midair after jumping from the free throw line and dunk it. No one else other than Jordan could do that.
I still think he's the greatest, but I love putting that in there. And I was worried because some of my questions have visual aspects to them. I didn't know how much you knew or didn't know about them. I'm like, how do I play this game if you get a question that is visual?
But you know what? That's why I do the work I do.
Yeah.
Even for the simple things, just to say, hey, we can break through even those little misconceptions and have a great time.
That's right. Oh, I had a great time with you today, and I've been I'm going to tell you, I've got so much more of a deeper perspective for you who have actually gone through stuff and thrived, not just survived it, but thrived in it. And I'm proud of you, Daniel.
Well, thank you. And it's been a pleasure, man.
Cool. Well, I thank you for being on the show today, and I want to thank our guests for being here today. Guys, go check out piecesofme.org. Check out Daniel and get to know him like I did today. And guys, we'll be back next week with another great episode. In the meantime, have a great week. Thanks, Daniel. See you guys next time.
All right. Thank you, sir.